First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the July 6, 2026 meeting. These minutes were distributed to the commission members in advance of today's meeting. Do any of the commissioners have any changes, edits to the minutes?
Yes. Under commissioners absent, none, and also present, I'd like to reverse those two. That Lane Vines, MJ Fruman, Christopher Brubaker, and Joseph Dow were absent, not also present.
And because I was not in attendance at the meeting, I'm going to abstain from voting on the approval of the minutes. Any other comments or? Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What do we have? Okay. So 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstain. Okay, next on the agenda is consideration of application 217865 concerning 452 Roberts Road. The applicant proposes to construct a life care residence facility comprising 225 units. Project is located within the PI Planned Institutional Zoning District. As reported, the project includes the redevelopment of existing site from the existing private school to life care residence. The main building, along with dwelling unit, is proposed to remain on site while all other buildings will be removed. All existing buildings are either 1 or 2 story buildings. The existing dwelling unit anticipated to remain will become the proposed leasing office for the life care residence. The proposed site is anticipated to have 208 multifamily units located in 15 different buildings, 16 twin homes. The proposed development also includes proposals for maintenance building, welcome house, potential EMS substation. The 2 existing accesses along South Roberts Road are to remain in their same locations and will be widened to meet township standards. Do we have a representative for the applicant?
Good evening, Jamie John here on behalf of Waverly Senior Services, which is the equitable owner of the property pursuant to an agreement of sale and purchase. As you have described, Waverly is proposing a life care residence for this property. We have submitted our tentative sketch plan for this project. We will also require zoning hearing board approval. Special exception is required for a life care residence use. There may also be a few variances that may be required for certain improvements on the property. We anticipate filing our zoning application hopefully by the end of this week so that we can be scheduled for September. So we will be returning to the Planning Commission for review of that zoning application once it has been filed prior to going to the hearing in September. But if the board would like, I can certainly go through the list of zoning relief that may be required. The plan as we currently have it, it obviously will go through some changes as we go through the land development approval and also the zoning hearing board approval. But we have representatives of Waverly here tonight that can kind of give a very brief summary of the vision for this property, what Waverly is, and then also our project engineer, she can go through the proposed site plan, sort of the existing conditions, and also go through the waivers that we are seeking from the SALDO. I know that there are some neighbors here today. Yes?
Aren't we just at the stage of a sketch plan? You're just looking for advice. You sound like you have it ready to go at this point, but you're as a preliminary plan or a final even, but obviously that's not the case, right? Correct?
That's correct. So
all the neighbors who are here will then perhaps realize that we're not going to take a final vote on this tonight because you are presenting it as a sketch plan,
That's correct. So procedurally, we are in the sketch plan phase, and I know just the Planning Commission will be looking at it and giving some recommendations. We obviously will be back here with a preliminary plan as well as a final plan once we have gone through the zoning approval process. And where I left off was I know that there are some neighbors here today. Waverly had also sent out an invitation to the neighbors, all of the neighbors that would have received the Planning Commission public notice, and invited them to an informational session at the Waverly campus in Gladwin. I believe there were 11 RSVPs. There were a lot of questions that were asked, and I'm sure there will be more questions tonight as well. But if the board will be open to it, I would like to call up our representative from Waverly to just give a little bit of a background so you understand what Waverly is and what they are proposing for this site before we sort of get into the technical waivers and the site development issues.
Thank you.
So I'm going to call up Tom Garvin, and he is the president and CEO of Waverly.
Good, thank you, Jamie, and thank you for having us here tonight. We thought we'd just give you a little overview of what Waverly Heights is. Obviously, we're a senior living community. We take care of about 365 plus or minus residents in the Gladwin area. 80% of our residents come from within about a 3-mile radius of the community. So we really serve the population where we exist. We've been there for 40 years. And like Jamie said, Waverly Senior Services is the parent company. I've been there for just over 16 years at this point. We offer independent living, full of amenities and services that make life, very easy and very comfortable for the independent residents that we care for. We're primarily an independent living community, but as people age in place and need higher levels of care, be it personal care or skilled nursing, we also offer that on the current site in Gladwin. So one thing that kind of has brought us here today is for years we've been strategic planning and looking ahead because we have unprecedented demand at Waverly Heights for what we do. We have well over 700 people on our priority membership list. And so we're seeing higher and higher demand. And then when you look at the demographic trends across the country, the baby boomers are aging to the point that they need housing for older adults. And there's a woeful lack of senior housing across the country to serve that sort of bubble that's coming in the population. And so when you combine the type of organization that we are, we're a single site. We also do have a home care company, a non-medical home care company. We're looking to be able to meet that demand for the high-end senior living in a not-for-profit setting. And I think that's an important distinction from some of the things that are popping up around the country is that we are not-for-profits. We reinvest a lot back into our community. We always take care of our residents, our employees, and our neighbors. We treat all three constituents like they are who we're there to serve. And for 40 years, we've been able to prove that in Gladwin, and we're looking forward to bringing this opportunity to Radnor. When we looked at Radnor Township, a lot of our priority list already comes from this area, and they moved from here over to the Gladwin area. We actually did a scatter plot of all of our current residents and all the residents on our priority membership list, and a vast majority of them are from this area. And I think hopefully as the word gets out, that with what we were hoping to do with this township on Roberts Road, that we'll see that start to grow. And really what it does is allows the population of Radnor Township to stay in Radnor Township for the long haul. That's definitely what we see people in the greater Gladwin area wanting to do, and that's been a trend that we've seen for years and years. And so we're hoping to be able to do that here with you. The concept plan, before you, like you said, is very much a sketch plan. It will evolve over time. The 200 independent living units and 25 assisted living units, no skilled nursing. That's pretty much what you're seeing in these types of communities now. Post-COVID, we've moved away from skilled nursing. There are synergies between the two campuses that we know will happen, so residents would be able to access amenities and services at both campuses, which really opens up a great opportunity for the residents of Radnor Township and the greater Main Line. So that's a little bit of an overview. I don't know if there's any questions that I can answer. The fact I could do that in 5 minutes is probably pretty remarkable to the people sitting here, but thank you for having us, and we look forward to working with you through this process.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you had an informational session with the neighbors?
Yes.
Can you summarize that session for us?
Yeah, sure. We felt it was important to reach out to the neighbors before we were required to say, hey, this is who we are. So the letter described Waverly Heights, who we are, introduced myself, talked about our community and our organization, and then invited them to this information session. The information session kind of walked them through how we got here. You know, why, a lot of what I just said, but in a little bit more wordy version. So really letting them know what the process was, how we engaged with the Haverford School on the property. You know, there were questions about timing, and then we did put the concept plan up. And like Jamie said, we got a lot of really good questions. That ended up being a good portion of the meeting because obviously that generates questions. And Mark Heil, who's our Vice President of Campus Development, who's here to my right, was able to answer a lot of those questions. So some of those neighbors are here tonight, and it was a good meeting. We also spent a lot of time talking about who we are as a neighbor. We talked about how much we really, what I said earlier about looking out for our neighbors and taking care of them. We're in the middle of a very residential neighborhood in Gladwin, if you're familiar with our campus. So we know what that's like, and we know how to be a good neighbor, and that's something I think that's critically important. We talked about, you know, numbers of employees, residents, a little bit about traffic, all those things we know we'll need to address through the process, and just answered questions. We do pride ourselves on transparency. Again, I've been there for 16 years. You know, we do resident meetings all the time, open conversations meetings, as well as scheduled very formal forum meetings. So we make sure everybody's well aware of what's happening within, you know, within the organization. So that's the kinds of things that we covered. And we had some nice desserts for them as well.
Yeah, I have a question for you in terms of timeline, just because we've been dealing with Oak Hill for about 4 years now, the by Valley Forge Military Academy.
Sure.
I don't think they thought it was going to be a 4-year wind out, but can you give us any idea what your expectations are for the timeline?
Yeah, so what we're thinking, and again, all very conceptual. I mean, we don't even own the property yet. We'll own the property hopefully by the spring of next year. From that point on, you know, we're kind of saying a 3 to 5 year plan. We're currently working on a pretty major project on our campus in Gladwin. And so this will work in parallel with that. But, you know, 3 to 5 years to shovel in the ground along those lines. This opportunity for a piece of property that's 43 acres, zoned institutional, in our primary market area, is one we just couldn't pass up. And it's been part of our strategic plan for years. We have a board of trustees, you know, so this isn't just management saying, oh, we need to do this, and it's not well thought out. We've been talking about doing this for years and have been searching for the right piece of property, and that's kind of how we got there. The timing on it is, you know, is a bit unknown to us, but if you were to direct answer to the question is, you know, 3 to 5 years. And we'll maintain the property, obviously, once we own it in great, you know, great condition, much like the Haverford School has.
So with the meeting that you had with neighbors, when was that?
It was last Thursday night.
Okay, and
Yes.
where was that?
At Waverly Heights. We felt it was important to have it at Waverly Heights so they could see the type of community that we are looking to bring to Radnor Township.
Is that in Gladwin?
Yes.
Okay, and how many residents, Radnor folks showed up?
I'm sorry.
How many neighbors showed up?
So we had 11 RSVPs, and I think we had 10 people show up, if I'm not mistaken. So
Okay.
it wasn't super well attended,
Okay.
but you know, it was. It's a Thursday night in the summer. We did it at 7:00 p.m., thinking that might be helpful. And again, the neighbors that were there were very engaged, and we just, you know, we did a Q&A, much like what we're doing, and it was, I mean, it was great. And I know there's a lot of questions. Some we're not able to answer because we're so early in the process. But we felt it's important to reach out to the neighbors early so that we could start talking about what they want and what they need and what they see for the property.
So if you had to identify, I don't know the answer, I'm asking
Yeah.
you. If you had to identify, what were the top 3 concerns that neighbors voiced? What would you say those were?
I would say that what the perimeter of the property looks like, you know, where there's setbacks, and, you know, we show some recreational space just as placeholders on there. So I think that was probably the main question. I don't think we got a lot about traffic or anything like that. We try to anticipate the questions, so we answer them as part of our presentation. But this definitely drew the most interest. What did the lines mean? What did the dots and the setback lines? So that's the kind of questions that people wanted to know. And some of the neighbors that are contiguous to to this property, asked questions specifically about what was right in their, on the other side of the berm. I spent a lot of time talking about landscaping. If you drive down Waverly Road by Waverly Heights, the berm that we put in and the plantings are spectacular. You don't even see the community. You would drive by there and not even know it's there. And we put a lot of energy and time and thought into buffering, and so I shared that with the neighbors as well.
Okay. So you had questions regarding the perimeter and buffering.
Yeah.
Did you have two other issues?
It'd be easy for me to say traffic. I think we talked a little bit about the number of people that would be housed there, because there's 200 independent living units. So you figure that's a combination of couples and singles. So what the final number of residents that end up there, it's hard to say. Waverly Heights right now is 211 independent living units, and we probably have 250 independent living residents in those 211 units. So a lot of singles. There's not maybe as many couples as you think, but a 200-unit community would most likely end up around 260 independent living residents. So we discussed that as well. And as I mentioned here earlier, we would not be planning to do skilled nursing on site here, but some assisted living is our concept, 25 beds of assisted living. We haven't really discussed doing any memory support here because we offer that at the main campus in Gladwin. So, making sure that people understood how the campuses can collaborate together was, I think, important as well.
So this project would have two levels of care. You'd either be independent or assisted.
Correct.
Okay.
That's our plan. And like I said, we own a pretty substantial home care company called Waverly Care, non-medical home care. So we really believe in helping people age in the right place. So what's right for them, it's different for everybody, obviously, as you age. But being able to bring home care into their independent living units, oftentimes our residents choose to stay in independent living longer than they maybe would be able to if we didn't have that service available to them. So it's not really a level of care, but it is another layer that I would add it to: independent living, assisted living, home care.
Okay. And just going back to, potential neighbor concerns, you had perimeter, traffic, anything else?
I think that's about what jumped out. Is there anything that you think of that came up? I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah, so
Can you just state your name for the record?
I'm sorry.
Sure.
So I'm Mark Heil, Vice President of Campus Development, the applicant of record. Primarily, the three questions that Tom mentioned. A lot of neighbors didn't understand what all the secondary setback lines were on the plan, Category 1 and Category 2. So we tried to clean that up a little bit visually for them. Also, the hatched areas on the plan, it was hard to understand what the preservation areas were, and also the closely hatched areas that showed where we intend to put things like possibly amenity spaces, bocce courts, putting greens, outdoor things of that nature. Those boxes represent those things. So we had to talk through that a bit. The third question we had was really about like trash truck traffic. And there was one fourth comment. Someone did ask about the possibility of the EMS station on the site.
I'm sorry.
The EMS station, the remote station, EMS fire station on site.
Okay. And could you show us on the map where the buildings are currently and which ones are to remain and which ones are not?
Do we have a pointer? Do we have a pointer here?
Could you also describe while you're going through that, could you also describe the buildings, what's 2 stories, which one is 40 feet? And
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
as you go through them.
If you're, anything else for me, because I will turn it over to our team, because that's when you get into the technical stuff, and I'm an operations guy.
Just one question, sorry, from me, and you touched on it a little bit with amenities, but the types of amenities and the sort of hours or sharing arrangements with the other property, like just kind of any ideas you have.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a wide variety of amenities. I would definitely encourage you to visit even our Waverly Heights website, and you'll see the whole list of them. I can tell you that Waverly Heights becomes like a ghost town at 8:30. So nothing happens outside after, probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And inside, it's really, happy hours, dining, a program, a musical, a play, a lecture, and then by 8:30 at night, in fact, at the end of our meeting last week, it was 7 o'clock, went to about 8:30, and it was a ghost town by then. Outdoor amenities that we have are things like a putting green, a croquet court. We do have a little dog park. We have bocce. We have beautiful gardens. We're a designated arboretum. So those are just some of the walking paths which are open to the neighbors as well, which is a great amenity to add not only for the residents who live there but for the neighborhood. That's been hugely beneficial. So a lot of great outdoor amenities inside. Everything you can imagine from fitness areas to we're putting in a golf simulator. We have a huge theater that's unbelievable. We have, wood shop and pool and 2 libraries. The list goes on and on of the amenities that we offer. The shared amenities would be like that existing property, has an outdoor pool. Whether or not we maintain that, we have no idea. But that's the kind of thing you can say, okay, maybe the residents from Gladwood would come over and enjoy that during the day, or the residents from Roberts Road could come over and play in the weekly putting match or croquet outing that we have. So that's kind of how we see all during the day, because life begins to revolve around dinner and whatever's going on, and then by 8:30 it's good night time.
Thanks. And then the EMS site, you mentioned the potential site, is that from the proposed plan, there's already that concept, or was that just a question from the neighbors?
Could I just address the EMS substation? So how that came about is that the Board of Commissioners, during our early on meeting with them, had suggested or had mentioned that that might be desirable, something that the township has been looking for. So as of now, the plan currently has a placeholder, but obviously there's a lot that needs to be worked out for something like that to be provided. I think it's anticipated that it will be something that is township leased or owned, and we need to work through all of those details. So for the sketch plan concept, we have provided a footprint and a possible location. There have been some preliminary discussions with the fire and EMS chief as to what the need may be, but I am guessing that in terms of the EMS substation, we will probably come back at the preliminary stage with some additional or more concrete details about how that will function and look like and where it would be located. I also believe that there is a provision in the zoning code where township uses and leased properties sort of get a little bit of more leeway under the zoning code, and maybe something that could be approved by the Board of Commissioners rather than having to go through the zoning hearing board for, let's say, any improvements that's within a setback or things like that. So again, it's sort of a placeholder now, but we likely would like to come back preliminary plan with some additional details. I just wanted to address one other thing. We were sort of talking about the timeline for what Waverly is looking at. I know Tom had mentioned 3 to 5 years before shovel in the ground. But obviously, we have an agreement of sale that has certain deadlines, and so in terms of the approval process, we do need to kind of get through the beginning approvals relatively quickly under that agreement of sale. So we need some assurances in terms of zoning, the special exception. Obviously, we would like some feedback in terms of the sketch plan to know that all of this is feasible, and I think they are, because for the most part, what we're proposing is a by right project. But 3 to 5 years, it goes by pretty quickly in terms of when you're looking at tentative and preliminary and final plan approval, in addition to the zoning.
Just one more, this might be an operational question, but in terms of like certifications or rating agencies or inspections, just kind of quality of care and space, is that something you could just provide context on?
Sure. So organizations like ours, because we have the different levels of healthcare, the Department of Health oversees skilled nursing. The Department of Human Services oversees and licenses personal care. And then while CCRCs they're licensed in the state through the Department of Insurance, you submit your paperwork basically to them every year in something that's called a disclosure statement. There's not necessarily an inspection, but we also voluntarily participate in a certification process called CARF, which stands for the Commission on Accreditation of Rehab Facilities, but it really is the accrediting body. It's like what JACO is to hospitals, to acute care, CARF is to senior living. It's a voluntary process that holds you to a higher standard, so the top communities really do participate in CARF, and our CARF champion is Laura San Angelo right there, so she really helps drive that process for us. So those are, and then there's of course all the food licenses and everything else. But quality is of the utmost, importance in what we do. And that's, if you don't know much about Waverly Heights, know that we are a high-end provider of really high quality senior living. I can't overemphasize the fact that we reinvest as a not-for-profit in staffing, amenities, and services. So that's why we're able to provide a different level of quality than some places, because we really do reinvest in those. And our inspections and what have you are critically important to our overall success. We're 5-star rated through CMS. This is our Senior Vice President of Healthcare, Meredith Fair, who's a Radnor Township resident and lives 2 minutes from here. So she's been overseeing our whole healthcare operations and our 5-star facilities for like 12 years now. So.
And I just want to add, we did receive the Township Engineers Review Letter. We received the Traffic Engineers Review Letter. For the most part, we don't have any issues with the comments. Obviously, we will take them into consideration, come back with the preliminary plan that addresses, I believe, all of them. And then, Natalie, she can go through the plans with you.
Hi, my name's Natalie Rosado. I'm with Bowler Engineering, and I'm the civil engineer on the project. I'd be happy just to briefly walk you guys through the existing condition plan. Let me see if this one works. Okay, this is better. Okay, so here's the site in the existing condition. There's 2 access points here and here off of South Roberts Road. We're proposing to maintain those points of access. The yellow hatch is steep slope areas of 14 to 20%, and the red hatch is steep slope areas greater than 20%. On the plan here, this is the existing mansion. It's 2 stories. We're proposing to maintain that as a focal point for the site. And then there's also other 1- and 2-story buildings throughout the site. Those are located here, 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 here. We're also proposing to maintain this existing building right here. I believe this is a 1-story building that we're looking at using as a leasing office. So of the buildings on site, this one here, which is the main mansion, and this building here are the 2 that are proposed to remain. Are there any questions about the existing conditions?
So do you have pictures of these buildings?
We do. We have pictures. I don't have them with me tonight, but I'd be happy to share them with you.
Hey, Lane, can I suggest something that seems like it's worked before?
I already know where you're going.
You can
So
go
yes.
there then, if you want.
Yeah.
Your idea, Matt.
With Oak Hill and with the senior center that was being built at Brack Academy, we had site visits. So the Planning Commission would throw a few people out with the team, and we'd walk around, and it was very beneficial
Okay.
for us, and I think for the developers as well. So.
And I think Waverly would be more than happy to allow access to the site. I just want to add one thing about the existing building. So currently, we're proposing to maintain the main building and that building that's within the setback. I believe that's currently a maintenance building that we're looking to convert. But there are ongoing evaluations going for the buildings. Some of the buildings are not in as good of a condition as we thought it may be, including that building in the setback. So it could be that as we further develop that building would be removed. But I think as Tom had alluded to, perhaps there may be other buildings that may be maintained. But again, we would be more than happy to have the Planning Commission members and whoever else from the township come out and look at those buildings.
Were
Could
the-
you, excuse me,
Go ahead.
could you point out the buildings that are part of the original estate and those that are part of the village that was brought in after, I guess, 1959?
So our information is a little limited, but what we were able to determine from past information provided to us by the seller, and just recall, we don't own that land yet. We'll be happy to do a tour, but we do have to work with the seller's agent to coordinate that. Just want to make that statement. On the plan, the original Robinson Hall, the mansion that we're discussing, we know is original to the estate. We believe that that small building that we're talking about, the using as a leasing arrangement, may possibly have been the first structure on the campus as the farmhouse, as it's commonly referred to. And then there are some, I'll call it carriage house-like buildings that were common of the era to support the mansion that appear to be of the same period. Yep. So again, right here, so in this area here, there's some, I'll say in general appearance to the mansion, which is located here, Robinson Hall. There's some additional buildings in this location that have the same appearance. So when we can share photographs with you, you would see visually that they're similar in appearance. That denotes they were constructed probably either around the same time period or constructed to look or appear similar. So correct. Actually, the mansion itself appears to have a number of additions to it that took place at later periods of time. So our intent is to preserve the original portion of the mansion. The additions like stairwells appear to have been added like in the 60s, maybe in the 70s. Of those things we still have to study. There's a large building in the center of the campus here that's actually an auditorium. When we looked at that again recently on site, again, that's something that Tom mentioned, we're actually reconsidering possibly repurposing that auditorium. Although it's not, vintage to the site, we think the construction was probably somewhere around the 40s, 50s, or 60s. It does have some usefulness to it. The other buildings, the dormitories in particular, they appear to be in very bad shape. Those were built at a much later period. And they were pointed out already by Natalie, fringing the property. I do want to make a statement that many of those buildings currently reside, the dormitory buildings, I point to them again, this is a little awkward, sorry, but the dormitory buildings that lay on the fringes of the property currently reside within the setbacks. We do recognize that we would have an ability to retain those footprints. We intend not to. We think there's an advantage, particularly in how we're constructed at Waverly Heights, creating that setback and distance between neighbors, is a positive thing. So on the plans that we're showing you, our intent is to not keep anything that's currently within the setbacks.
With regard to the mansion itself, what are you going to use the mansion? What purpose is that? And are you looking to maintain the current, interior, which I'm not sure what it looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is, at Waverly Heights, we have a similar situation. We have an old mansion, a state home. It was built in 1910 for the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad System, Samuel Ray. That's currently used for, I'll call it amenity space, for parties. Upstairs, there's 5 bed and breakfast style rooms. We can use it for meetings and things of that nature. So that we envision the same thing for Robinson Hall. It's a little larger and a little grander, so maybe we can get more programming in there. But our intention would be to retain the interior as much as possible to how it was originally designed and currently is today. It's a beautiful building, and we see that we'd like to maintain as much as that as possible. Sure.
Thank you.
That was pretty handy if you just did that. That's, yeah, we can lay them on the...
There's a lot of history out there in this project, and the architects for it were very significant, famous architects, and they did the work, the different pieces of the project from 1906 through 1925. So there's a lot of information which I'm happy to share with you what I found. You can also go to the Radnor Historic Society, and they have a bulletin that they published in 2002, and it has an article about the history of the place and the history of the owners of the building. So
Thank you.
Were there additional pictures?
I just grabbed those three. I happen to have them on my computer.
So, yeah, we do recognize there's, excuse me, there's a lot of information available on the mansion itself and the like structures. What I was referring to is some of the later additions and the timing in which
Well,
they
were put there
were
for the
designed.
children's village,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
Correct, yep.
Yeah, they're not great buildings.
Right.
Sorry if the architect is here.
No offense taken, I'm not the designer. But, so this plan you're seeing here, I'll try to put them side by side if you can see that. So,
Yeah, that's actually the kind of the,
yeah, so
What would be the
this is,
backside?
yeah, you see the similarity between the structures. So again, anything that, if it's on the site and appears to be of that similar construction to the mansion, that's something we look at retaining. So there were some additions to it was like an infirmary they'd used for at one point in time. Again, we have to sort of get into that yet, from an architectural design perspective and sort of dissect and see, what is original, what's vintage, what's not, what was made to look like it belonged, and what came at a much later date. So this other image
Why-
here.
I'm a little surprised that you would demo those outbuildings. I mean, people work really hard to have buildings of that kind of character on their campus. And when I looked at your plan, it essentially destroyed the character of this whole place. And it's kind of rare to have intact a main house and all of its outbuildings. I know there were some little additions and stuff through there. And to preserve that is, I mean, I think you could use that. Well, I'll let you continue with your plan.
Sure. Do we want to bring the plan up?
Yeah, let me flip to the proposed conditions plan here. Okay, so as previously discussed, we're looking to maintain the two existing access points off of South Roberts Road. There's 11 hybrid units. Those are the buildings here. So those are the hybrid units. And then back here are the villas. We're currently proposing 8 of those.
What is a hybrid unit?
So I'll field that one. So a hybrid, think of it as an apartment building, but it also has some of the benefits of a cottage or a villa. So the way our campus views this is, we call them deluxe apartment buildings. Hybrid is a term used by architects. I'm not an architect, but it uses a combination of features that are both common to a single-family home, and an apartment style living, and kind of mashes those together for convenience.
How many units would that be roughly in one of those hybrid buildings?
There's
So
12.
12 in each one of those buildings.
Roughly.
Okay.
Those are, yeah.
I'm sorry, it's three stories.
Each of them are 3-story.
Yes, so each of these, we call them the hybrid or the apartment, deluxe style apartment buildings, they're 3 stories.
And the ones at the rear of the property?
So these are cottage homes, we call them villas at Waverly. These are currently shown on the plan in duplex form. So for example, this would be one next to the other, it's a pair.
So which buildings are the ones that would exceed the height limit?
It would be the 3-story buildings.
And how many are there?
There's 11 hybrid units.
Okay, so you have 11 buildings that are above that limit. Is that right?
Correct.
And
Sorry, Commissioner Vines, the limit is 38? units?
38
And the
feet.
buildings are 3 stories at what height?
They'd be approximately 45.
How tall is the house? Is the main house now?
The main house is 2 stories. I'm not sure if it lists the height on the survey, but I can look into that and get back to you.
That's a question we just recently asked ourselves because it appears very tall. Even though the buildings are 3-story by design, so 3 levels of living, over 38 feet is essentially to have an appearance that's attractive, without a flat roof on the 3rd floor. So you can have attractive gabled ends and things of that nature. It's not a living level up above.
Does your design contemplate like 10-foot ceilings or 8 or 9 foot, I mean, unusually high compared to
Yeah,
conventional?
we have absolutely found that low ceilings, our current residents don't like them and they don't sell very well. So this would, be somewhere between a 9, 10-foot ceiling.
And that's probably one of the principal reasons to exceed the height limit.
I would say it's a combination of those two things. It's the floor-to-floor heights, and then also, what happens above the top floor to make the buildings attractive, contained or screen any type of rooftop equipment from view and things like that.
I will say part of it too, the site has a lot of grade change, and the township definition for building height factors in the mean grade surrounding the building, and so because of the grade change to an extent, that's also contributing to the building height.
Those hybrid buildings have pitched roofs?
They can. Hybrid building, if we shared what one looks like at Waverly Heights, we currently have one on the community we call the Turnberry Building. And Tom mentioned a project, we're creating 2 more. They have pitched roofs that look similar to a mansard-style shingled roof with gabled ends, with sometimes it's real or faux windows at the top to make it look like a home. It's an effort to not have it be a chopped-off flat, roof design that you can't shield any equipment from view and things like that.
So not a true pitch roof, but a mansard roof designed to
Yeah.
appear.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And each of these hybrid buildings have elevators?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we
Okay.
definitely have elevators. In some cases, we envision probably at least 2 elevators per building. We've learned the hard way, seniors don't like to take the stairs if the elevator's broken. So we definitely need 2 in each one of those styles. Now, in the larger buildings here and here, there might be more than 2.
How tall are those larger buildings?
They'd be the same, be 3 stories.
45.
Same roof design?
Same or similar idea. Again, I'll remind the board that they've not been designed yet, so we don't actually have an architectural design that we could share. So what we're doing is we're playing off what we know works at Waverly Heights and using that as our design cues and style.
And those villas that you have to the north or to the Page North, are those single stories?
They are, yes, they're single story.
Okay.
Some of the cottages at Waverly Heights have a lower level. If the grade would allow it, it could have a walkout basement. Here, we think it's probably going to be a slab-on-grade style, which is the single level. Each one of the hybrid buildings, and most likely the apartment buildings as well, the larger building, all have underground parking as well. And that's obviously in an effort to try and reduce the amount of surface parking and have covered parking, for the people that live in those homes.
It's my understanding you're proposing, I think, 521 parking spaces.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're currently proposing 321 surface spaces and 200 spaces that are subgrade.
How many of those are for staff, would you say? Since it's too far away from public transportation.
It's an excellent question. We tried to give an accurate answer when it came up the first time. It's really hard to determine at this phase. We can tell you approximately how many staff we think it takes to service a community like this. At Waverly, now remember, we operate 2 to 3 shifts. We have roughly about 300 employees. I'll say during the day, it's probably less than, I'll say maybe about 50% of that's day shift, I'll call it. So a lot of our employees take public transportation, and we run shuttle services, which is important. So parking is a slightly different situation at a retirement community where you have a lot of your employees that, take public transportation to a junction or a station where we use our shuttle to pick them up. A lot of our employees don't drive, and they use that shuttle. And it helps obviously greatly reduce parking and traffic concerns as well. It's hard to gauge, what a future property might contain in the mix of them. But, we have, at the right time we go, forward, we can share a little bit more better data, that can support, how people park and drive to Waverly Heights.
Are you planning to have an employee shuttle operating at this location?
Definitely.
And where would it be going to and from?
I'll say that's yet to be determined. We have some likely locations from the most nearby, stations and junctions. We suspect that's where most of the employees would go to receive shuttle services, but that's yet to be defined.
Would the shuttle possibly do double duty as a shuttle for residents between there and the Gladwin?
So we do have shuttle services for residents. We do shopping trips. We do, other services, taking them to, worship services on the weekends and things like that are shuttle-based. They don't necessarily use the same vehicle. Sometimes they do, depending on the need. But we do offer shuttle services to residents as well. We also, as a commonality of these communities, so the impact to traffic impact should be much lighter than a single-family home community. We provide medical transportation also for our residents. So if you live in a retirement community like Waverly Heights, you have a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment, we have a vehicle and staff that take you to your appointment. Often that means that we see the economies of scale of that. So you might have 2 or 3 residents that, I'll say carpool for lack of a better term, in that appointment run, as well as the shuttle services for events and services.
Could you explain why the buildings are the size they are, particularly the ones that are, you said 11 of them, I think.
Yeah, so great question. The easy answer is the way these buildings are designed is they mimic what we've got now. So we had a wildly successful product that we introduced a number of years ago I referred to as the Turnberry Building. And believe me, we'll love to show you that if we could bring you over to Waverly Heights on a tour as well. And when you see it, you probably understand a little bit better, but that building, this is mimicked on the site in these hybrids, the deluxe-style apartment buildings. And then we also have 2 larger apartment buildings that we call Andrews and Blair. That's more of a conventional apartment building style, and that's the type of thing that we're looking for here. So it's sort of 2 styles of apartment buildings.
Do you have any kind of design or thought as to what these buildings are going to look like?
So we have a really good idea. They have not been designed yet. Obviously, that's something we'll come forward with when we have elevations to share and things of that nature. But I can share with you, we are extremely sensitive to the appearance of our buildings. Obviously, everything we have to do has to have that mainline flair to it that looks like it belongs in the community. Gladwin, similar to Radnor in that respect. All the building styling would be something that people of this area would recognize as attractive and appropriate. So they would not be commercial-looking structures, glass, window walls and things of that nature. That will have combination of stone and stucco and soft treatments or brick, whatever is appropriate for the neighborhood.
Can you talk a little bit about the traffic flow? By looking at what you have presented, it looks like traffic goes all the way around the facility, but I'm not sure. And is it 2-way traffic, or is it going to be 1-way traffic in and out?
It's 2-way traffic in most areas. The place where there's the 1-way traffic is here. This is the drop-off area, so that's where it transitions to 1-way traffic. And again, a resident would come in, and most resident parking is under the buildings or associated with the buildings, so they'd go to their desired building and then park underneath.
So emergency vehicles would be able to go anywhere where I see what looks like a road?
Yeah, as part of the sketch plan submission, we ran a truck turn analysis and provided it for the fire truck.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
I have some aerial images up on my computer, so I wanted to give it a shot to put it on the camera.
That'd
Maybe
be-
just
Okay.
help you.
That'd be
Yeah, that'd be
wonderful.
great.
Thank you. Guess I can't do that here. that's great.
So maybe you could just take us through on this view, the buildings that you were describing earlier, like keeping and replacing, and for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time kind of bridging that to this.
Sure. No, I completely understand. So a little explanation here, what is in the package. Yeah, obviously, we had to get something for sketch plan out the door to be in front of you tonight. That was our, we have a schedule, I have a plan, I have a boss, so, we have to have a plan. So some of that information may have been lost in translation when we talk about some of the buildings that we envision possibly retaining. Obviously, Robinson Hall in all of its grandeur and the associated carriage home and like buildings built of the same period, we envision seeing a purpose for. We're also just started looking again. Remember, we don't even own this property yet, so we've only been on the property maybe a dozen times or less to even get inside and take a look around. But we're looking at the auditorium structure as well. We have a large, auditorium-like feature at Waverly Heights where we do a lot of programs, services, entertainment. Residents, our Residents Association runs a lot of programs at Waverly Heights, so amenity space is something we always try to look for. I think at our first visit to the site, quite a while ago, when we first looked at that, we weren't really sure its condition. The more we look at the auditorium building, the more we kind of view that as something we can make good use of. The outer buildings that are again, I don't know your definition. When you mention outbuildings before, I tend to think of the dormitory buildings. The dormitory buildings that are, number one, as I mentioned before, many of them are out in the setback areas, and we do not intend to retain them. And a lot of them are very, kind of poor shape, which I'm sure you're aware of. The size and scale and shape of them also doesn't lend itself quite well to what we would use for, a deluxe apartment building or a villa. So those we don't see much use for.
So just to clarify, you're saying you are going to retain the carriage house off to the right here?
So what we're currently looking at is we definitely show on the plan retaining the mansion. We had a secondary thought of retaining a portion of the carriage house if it's practical. Again, we understand that'll be part of preliminary plan and all that. Again, we're still looking at it with our designers. Our main mission for our architects and designers was, we do have, I'll call it a number, quantity of people that we need to have on the campus to make this also economically feasible. So we're looking at that number, the 225, 200 independent living and 25 assisted living. So the first thing we need, tell an architect, design enough spaces to accommodate that, we end up with a sketch plan. But we'll have to shift some things around depending on, what we at Waverly determine is what we want to retain. Just to repeat myself, definitely looking at the mansion, possibly dismantling some of the additions that were added on kind of haphazardly over the years. And the carriage house building appears to have some, originality to it that we may be able to repurpose.
So more, sorry.
No, you're fine.
No.
We love questions. We'll answer
On the
all night.
virtual tour on the property, I was just trying to find.
Oh, there it is.
Turnberry example, is that?
Hey, you're okay. Yeah, so this is the Turnberry style building I referred to, which on our plan here, this building, Turnberry, currently this one's 2-level. We are planning 2 others down the hill that will be 3-level, as is on this plan. So this is essentially what that hybrid or, deluxe apartment style building would be. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Not sure how to stop that. Here we go. The brick building off to the side, when Waverly was originally built in 1985, there were 2 apartment buildings that were put in. I've been there almost 30 years. It was slightly before I got there. So that building you see that's rotating away from me again in view, that there's 2 of those style, Andrews and Blair, on the campus. Actually, you might see Blair rotate in the view in a second here if we're lucky. And those style buildings are what I'll point to are these 2 on the plan. There's Blair rotating in the view now. It's kind of neat. So there we have a bocce court, putting green is behind me now. We're looking at a bridging link, interior connection between Blair and the Commons building. This Commons building is attached to our current mansion. This is the sort of thing we envision, with the, let's say we could use some of the auditorium building for this purpose, which is dining above. There's a wellness center with a pool down below and some other meeting space. There's our mansion quickly rotating by in the distance, and here we're back to the Andrews and Turnberry setting. That was really helpful. Thank you.
So let me,
I'll share my historical information with you.
Bring it on.
You can engage us for presentation. So. But, I think all the sensitivity you have for the people that are your residents, which you both spoke so well of, I want you to apply that to this building. It's the oldest thing you're going to be dealing with. And start to incorporate it in a plan that makes more sense than this plan. Because I think I'm not opposed to developing a site. I think it should be. And something really wonderful can happen here, but I don't think you're going to get to wonderful with this plan. It's very chaotic. It's a bit random. It destroys the main house. You're tearing down some really beautiful outbuildings, which I'm sure with your imagination you could figure out how to use. Well, anyway, that's
Thank you.
that's all I have to say at the moment.
so I guess two things. One, I echo some of Commissioner Varenhorst's concerns as to, the historical nature and, trying to preserve, portions of this property which are very, I think they should be preserved to the extent, you're able to do that. This is one of those old mainline estates, and I'd hate to see something of whatever historical nature you want to call it, be lost. So we can get back to that. In the interim, I think we should take some public comment and hear what some other folks have to say.
I have one more comment. You should dig into the history of it, because it's just not the building and the outbuilding. It was like a whole environment there that probably had gardens. It had all kinds of other things going on that it would be really interesting to find out how this 44 acres was really laid out and how you might kind of bring that back to life. I mean, you got a great opportunity to do that. You have a lot of buildings and roads and, you have all the parts and pieces to make it wonderful. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just share really quickly that we definitely will. We pride ourselves in doing our homework, and we'll do it well. We're not as familiar with the process in Radnor as we are in Lower Merion, which they run slightly different in the order of things, how you present the
first group
historical
you're always
commission
gonna
and all
see
that.
is
Yeah.
this charming
Great.
group. Yeah.
And we appreciate this level of feedback. That's why we're here. Thank you.
And I do just want to add that we wanted to come with a plan that was by right, and I think that drives a lot of the design. But we're hearing the feedback from the Planning Commission. If there is a desire that we take another look at existing building, obviously we're happy to do that. That may, though, require us to ask for additional zoning relief and waivers. But again, I think that perhaps there would be more openness to granting those waivers and zoning variances if it is in reaction to comment that we're receiving. So we will address those. And I know you want to open it up for public comment. Do you want us to go through the waivers or anything at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's hold off. I think we've all seen at least, the comment letters, so we have an idea of what you're seeking. Let's hear from some of the folks in the audience if they wish to be heard, and then we can follow up with you. And no matter what we do, I think, we would like a site visit, and that could be very helpful in itself.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there members of the public that wish to be heard? So please come up, state your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for hosting this. My name is Alexander Mans. Me and my husband are the owners of the property on 603 Portledge Drive and 609 Portledge Drive. First, let me state that I'm greatly appreciative of the historic preservation nature. Our property is one of the last remaining Horace Strumbauer homes on the main line. We have spent the last 5 years carefully restoring that home. And I've been fortunate to acquire the two properties that we own. I want to point out that I do not believe our properties are correctly reflected on the existing conditions map. One property, I'm not sure, I think we lost the projector, but we are listed in at least one of those two. But a property that is, this property is also ours.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it shows up, but on the left side, here, I'll let you do it otherwise. But here we go. We are listed here correctly and here, but this plot is also ours. And the reason why I wish to point that out is, I think, twofold. Number one, I believe our property lines are the closest to any buildings proposed on this plan. And second, I wanted to ask, maybe raise the question. I believe that it was stated earlier that there was no intention to build on the existing setbacks, but I believe that is what is the case on this particular example. And naturally, we can see today the two-story buildings that are there today from the Children's Village at their two-story height. And naturally, a three-story height restriction that goes above that has an impact on the sightlines from the community. I know that one of our neighbors who couldn't be here, I believe, tonight is even closer to these properties over here. I will say I'm very grateful for Mr. Garvin, who I had an opportunity to meet before, to communicate with the community, which I think is a good starting point for anybody to engage with neighbors under. But we are naturally very interested to protect things like sightlines, setbacks, understand what traffic will look like on Roberts Road going forward, naturally implications to sewer lines and the like, being an owner on the side of this property. Besides that, naturally, I would love to see the carriage house maintained. It's the Glencoe residence, which is its formal name. Next door, it's a beautiful home, incredible interior rooms with a great history, a beautiful plot of land. But we would love to work with the Waverly community to figure out how it can work for everybody. But I appreciate the historic focus and the well-pointed questions so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening. I'm Dave Fish, 767 Robin Hood Road. Our family's been here for 4 generations. We're clockmakers. And we happen to service all these houses, these mansions. When they were mansions, they were all self-maintained. Gardeners and everybody were on the properties. Being that Waverly, Beaumont, the mansions, Quadrangle, they've all kept the original houses on the properties, and they've been used, but they've been incorporated. I feel, and I still go into all these properties, maintaining the 8-story, 8 feet high ceilings to accommodate the grandfather clocks that I service. So that's one of the reasons that they do have higher ceilings. My main concern is this is at the top of the hill on Roberts Road. Water runoff is going to be a big consideration because going right out of the 2 entrance exits, you have a drop and there's houses all below there. Woodley, it's going to go into Woodley Road, which is going to go on Robin Hood Road. So it's just a concern. I see what you do by putting the tanks in single houses for the water runoff from the individual properties that they've built. So I think that's a big concern of how you're going to accommodate. And I know you guys, because I see you at Waverly. Delivery is a concern. The trucks will not be able to get down Roberts Road underneath the underpass of the P&W. So they're going to have to enter in off Ithan Avenue. They can't do this smaller streets because they won't accommodate the size of the trucks. You already have signs on Mill Road, no trucks accessible. Does that mean that they're going to come in through Robin Hood, Woodley to get there, which is all your neighbors? Unfortunately, we were not included in that meeting that you had the other night, which my wife and I would have gone to. Electric backup is a main issue. We lose our lights a lot because of power downage. So hopefully you will have already incorporated a backup system, which most of these facilities had to put in later at a pretty good size cost. Beaumont did it, and several of the others. What's going to be the drain on our police and ambulances? I don't know how often you have the ambulances coming in, but you've got a lot of seniors there. They're stretched now with our ambulances service, our police, our fire engines. Bryn Mawr has to work down Roberts Road. They have to maneuver to get their fire trucks to most of these places. Taxes. What's the tax? How does this all work? We're using our public facilities and what have you. And I think that's a problem. If it went to individual properties, you'd have a big tax revenue coming into the township, which would help us as seniors or anybody coming into the township. Police, electric, backup. Value of our homes, and I think that has sustained in Gladwin, those homes having gone down in value with this kind of a facility there because it's so well run, maintained, and incorporated into the community. There's a lot of good things about these homes, and they're taking care of a lot of we the seniors. Robinsons were very generous with their properties, giving the properties to the township, to the church is the mansion, which was Rosemont Presbyterian Village, and the Children's Village was given, the properties were given by the Robinson family lots of years ago. I guess, sewerage, water for the sewers processing through the township is a big issue. We have property in Lombard Township, and our assessment just went up because all of a sudden the commissioners realized where a lot more water is going through. And that comes up a lot at all the commissioners' meetings, how much water is going through. 225 residents, that's a lot of flushes for seniors, to be perfectly frank. So I'm trying to think what else. I think that's probably some of the issues. But I appreciate your endeavors to bring the community into this and help everybody work it out, because it's needed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Donald Alexander, 817 Castlefin Lane, and I consider myself a neighbor. I can walk to the entrance in 10 minutes from my house. I don't know if we were invited to the other meeting. I don't know if Castlefin was considered a neighboring property or not.
It was the ring directly around it a couple of times.
Okay, so I don't feel so stupid in not having read something that came in my mail or maybe didn't come in the mail. But I can represent the Castlefin neighbors because we've suffered through having large institutions operating in this zone. I've lived in the area for, I'm not even going to tell you, let's just call it 20 years. What we have is I know everyone on my street is very, very concerned about traffic. And there's a very just to give you some context, has anyone not driven down this area of Roberts Road? Could I just sample? Anybody not driven there? Okay, I'm glad you have. It's a very cloistered, narrow street. It's dangerous to the point where there are a lot of walkers dodging cars, cars dodging the other. We tend to have people trying to beat the Bryn Mawr Avenue traffic by cutting in and coming up Roberts during rush hour. Heading in that direction to the east, you encounter a maze of streets you have to navigate. Roberts intersects with Conestoga Road. Radnor now has us doing a dogleg to the left and then turning right on Montrose to get up to Haverford Avenue. All right, this is all a very, very, very congested area certain times of the day. I would encourage you to give extreme scrutiny to the traffic issues in this area on this narrow street. Particularly, try it between 3:30 and 5. The old rush hour is out. The new modern rush hour is 3:30 to 5. That's the worst possible time. So you have to go up Roberts and you hit one light, and then you have to dodge around and go and hit another light. Now, if there is a big backup, what the problem is then Conestoga leads you up to Haverford at a very narrow angle, and there are huge backups there. In the morning, going to the right towards the city. In the afternoon, it's coming back down, or actually it's people coming from the Wayne area coming up Conestoga Road, a huge flow of traffic. You've probably all done that. So the concern here is the comment that there are 500 parking spaces. The thought of having 500 occasional drivers hitting this cloistered, quiet area is very scary. And secondly, I'll represent everyone on Castlefin. We have had, we are a no-truck street. We are a 20-mile-an-hour street with a very, very sharp turn at the end. And we have had every kind of truck going down our street. And they're feeding the Robin Hood area for construction, all the construction that was done around down in the Robin Hood area. Those trucks cut through there. I've even seen a semi-tractor trailer go through. I don't know how he made the curve. I've had to make calls to Radnor saying, could you please replace our no truck sign because a truck hit it and knocked it down. I mean, it's really, really bad. So if you please give extreme scrutiny to the congestion issues. And the second point I would make is, I think I understood that the tall buildings, I was wondering, where are they going to go? And what I'm understanding is they're going right down closest to Roberts Road. Is that where they would be on the lower, right closest to the street? I think there were 3 that you mentioned that would be 3-story down towards Roberts. Am I doing this right? I'm not going to try to do that. We all know what Roberts is. That visually is really going to destroy the historic nature and view of this area. It was very nice and generous that this mansion was donated for an institutional use. It was a very nice thing. But if you think about it, given what's surrounding this area, this would never be permitted to be constructed in this area. It's so awkward, and it just creates so much density in one area and so much traffic issue that there's no way this would ever be permitted today. We live in a different world. We have so much traffic going on. There seems to be no way to stop these cut-through trucks. I'm, again, plead ignorance. EMS to me means medical emergency medical service. Is that right? Okay, so we're talking about, we already have streaming ambulances going up and down Bryn Mawr Avenue. And for some reason, they've all decided they need to run their sirens even in the middle of the night when there's no one on the road. The thought of having more ambulances in the area with possibly alarms going off at all hours or even just in the day, I'm shell-shocked by that concept. I would hope that, frankly, wouldn't come to pass. So I'll hold other comments. I'm open for questions on what Castlefin neighbors think, because, you know, it's not, the neighbors around this area aren't just the immediate neighbors. The whole area is panicked with what might have happened with the Haverford property, and now what's going to happen with this. I mean, people are nervous, all the side streets, left and right, because they're worried about the issues I've raised. So I'll hold if there are any questions.
No, thank you. Do we have, I'm just trying to gauge how many more folks we have that want to speak. Okay. All right, come on up. And please try to limit your time so we don't have to, you know, impose any limits. I want everyone to have a chance to speak.
I'll try to keep it concise. My name is Marissa Berlin. I live at 200 Cornell Drive, so I am directly south of the property. Especially knowing that you're planning on putting 500 parking spaces in there, many of them under the building, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I am very concerned about stormwater and wastewater mitigation. Especially, I've lived at this property for 40 years, and so I've seen the climate change, I've seen our management opportunities decline, and the basements around us are starting to flood. So I'm very interested in seeing what you guys will propose for stormwater mitigation. I saw that you are asking for a waiver about some of the tree planting. I would hope that you reconsider or at least look into an opportunity to plant trees outside of your parking areas, because I think that will really help. Especially here, I would love to see an EPA study, considering that the property is so large, harbors so many animals. Your residents will have the opportunity to hit a deer and a fox. I hope they don't hit either, but that is absolutely something that's going to happen. I share concerns about traffic mitigation. Something to consider, since you're going to be directly across from the Classical Academy, is during drop-off and pickup, you're going to have to figure out a traffic control measure. They're already instituting stopping guards and traffic control for the buses, but it's already impossible, and they're not going to have any less kids, and that is in that 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock window. So it would behoove you to think about how you're going to mitigate that traffic around that time of day. Think about how your shuttles are going to operate. The 100 line, that is the closest public transportation, has no room for parking. It just doesn't. There are no sidewalks. Think about where your residents, when they leave the campus, may exercise. There are no sidewalks. I already have an elder living with me who is going to, be the source of those ambulances. So just consider what their life and livelihood is going to be like on this very congested, it's not high traffic, but again, there are no sidewalks and it's full of hills. So do just consider what your life will be like for your residents and what you might be able to do to mitigate some of the safety hazards that will come up with this being a relatively quiet yet hilly, trafficy street. And yes, the truck-eating bridge on Roberts Road is not going to care. It will continue to eat your trucks. So yeah, those are some of my concerns, but I don't want to eat up everybody's time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Lake. I live on Woodley Road. Thank you very much for having this hearing and letting us voice our concerns. The former use of this facility was for wayward children. They never left the facility, they didn't have visitors, and they didn't have personal cars. What I see here is a tenfold in traffic that's going to be needed to support this building. If I may, the input and output, I don't think this can support the amount of traffic that's going to be needed. You're going to need to have this a 4-lane road with a turning lane in and out and traffic lights. Otherwise, this is going to get backed up both by residents, the Classical Academy, as well as commuters going back and forth on Woodley Road. You would need to have, absolutely, you need to have turning lanes and traffic lights. I'm curious to know what percentage will be impervious surfaces. I know that's a big buzzword with the township, but I think the most densely populated zoning can be around 35% building, and this looks like it's more than 35% building. So I'm curious of how impervious surfaces will work here. You will need a backup generator. There's no mention here of the location and where you're going to have your diesel storage tanks, which also present their own set of environmental concerns. Also, on one side of Roberts Road, it's cliffs. It drops down into people's backyards. It won't be 6 months before an elderly resident either comes out of the driveway or takes a sharp turn or a wrong turn off a cliff into someone's backyard. Guarantee it. And finally, Presbyterian Village in Beaupre is a similar type of facility where the people either lease or own their units. And Presbyterian Village in Beaupre is zoned residential. This is zoned institutional. So it's a completely different zoning for the same type of building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynn LaFiandra. I'm on Woodley Road, and I did attend the meeting at Waverly last week, and it was lovely that they invited us. There were, you know, a handful, or maybe 2 handfuls of residents. What I would like to do, most of the residents that came were the people on the perimeter of the property. And what I can do is take feedback from all those. There were concerns, of course. And, you know, good or bad, I can take all the feedback from the perimeter residents and bring that back to the board if that would help. You'll just tell me how to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Please.
I can be a lot quicker. How is everyone? I'm John Constable, 200 East Laurier Place, Bryn Mawr. I actually have the Arthur DeMoss estate, if any of you used to go up there, 15 acres. We're looking at a conservation easement right now. We're going to stop looking at it because that's designed off the back end of an income statement. That's not designed with beauty. We have the same thing this has as an actual house. I won't go further, but I would point number one. Number two, if you go to the Dowland Archives at Hagley, there are 5 or 6 shots of the Robinson Place with the garden, so you can find that. Third and fourth, just to finish up, I don't see how you don't widen Roberts Road. You know, it was designed where the horses would go curve, and rest at the bottom, go up the hill, rest at the top, and then go down again. That will be completely changed. I know we're not dealing with horses. We are dealing with probably 600, 700, 800 trips per day. We'll get the pro formas from Waverly off the net or something. So we have some concerns. We'd like to see something that's more sensitive to the environment. I look out on this every night. That's why I'm here. I can actually see it. And I'm available to anyone else in terms of the historical side of it. And I can be found. Thanks very much, Hollis.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Emily Remfrey, and I live at 413 Yorkshire Road. It's depicted here, top left there. I'm surrounded by my husband and some neighbors who live also on Yorkshire, surrounded this evening, as well as one who lives on Applegate. We heard tonight from the Waverly representatives that they're sensitive to their residents in Gladwin and their desires, but I didn't hear a whole lot of sensitivity to the current owners, the adjacent owners and the neighborhood owners, and residents who will be impacted by this development, such as on Castlefin, on Roberts, as well as the neighborhood that isn't really depicted on this, but it would be over here, which is where Clem McCrone Park is. Those houses are closely situated. They're probably on less than half an acre. Tons of children. A lot of families from that area walk around Yorkshire and around Clem McCrone Park. And if you imagine staff members commuting from the Blue Route to this property, they will be cutting through those neighborhoods. So I think it's vital that we have a very detailed traffic examination, because when we brought these concerns just around Clemacrone Park to the police, they said there was nothing they could do about people who speed through the neighborhood. I think to be completely engaging with the neighbors, we did receive a letter last Wednesday about the meeting, which said that they were going to present their Waverly business model, which is fantastic to know. However, it wasn't really strongly conveyed that we would be given the opportunity to examine these plans. So I think that if we could have another opportunity with Waverly representatives, there would be significantly more engagement. We're up to 35 people on our neighborhood text string. And we can certainly, in addition to getting letters from Waverly, we can communicate and pass that notice along so that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. I understand that this is time sensitive to Waverly because they're under an agreement of sale. However, that should not be a reason for you to make rash judgments without adequate information. This is a basic first starting point, but as I've just explained, there's a lot of other people who would like to comment, and Waverly and the Haverford School could always get an extension on their agreement of sale. So I respectfully request that you don't, feel like you need to rush this through for the benefit of Waverly at the expense of all of those families who will be impacted by this development. That's a Waverly problem. That's not our problem, and it shouldn't be our problem. Like I said, there can be extensions. Oak Hill has taken quite some time, and there's no reason for this to take any less time, unless, of course, we can get all the information we need in a timely fashion with appropriate review by engineers and surveys and things like that. I question, I'm not against development. I've lived there for 22 years now. We got along great with the village when it was here, and I'm hoping Waverly would be a good neighbor as well. But that does not include shrinking the buffer zone. That would give us more than 3 days' notice of a meeting. It would consider significant impacts on runoff, as it is Applegate Road. A lot of the water flows down now, and that's with all of the old growth trees, a lot of pervious surface. So all of those members on Applegate will be directly impacted by any runoff. I mentioned the traffic already. Roberts, as you know, is a very narrow street. You often see the staff from St. Edmund's Home walking there, as well as employees of the Classical Academy and whatnot. So Roberts, the width of it would need to be addressed. I mentioned the pedestrians. I would also like to just clarify that on this plan, there is no access roads on Applegate Lane, which comes in over on this side, and that the only access would in fact be off of Roberts Road. Let's see, other concerns, racket sports, depicted here on the plan, and perhaps property amenity area. If those are intended to be racket sports such as pickleball, because they are so closely oriented to current housing, we would request that they would be limited to indoors and enclosed so they could be used year-round by the residents, and the current neighbors would not be so impacted. Again, the buffer zone is a big concern because I think some of the drawing is unclear, but there are variances, I believe, depicted on this side, indicating that the buffer zone would actually shrink, which we request that would not be, in fact, the case. And finally, there are several large heritage trees on this site. Trees that will take hundreds of years to come back if they're in fact replaced at all. So I think we, as neighbors, would request that when the landscaping and tree plan is examined, that Waverly be requested and required to maintain as many old growth trees as possible and not just clear cut the lot, which would be understandably easier on behalf of the developer, but you know, we just won't see replacement in our lifetime. So we ask that you keep that in mind as you review those plans. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So just to go back to what we said at the beginning, tonight is a sketch plan presentation. We're not going to take a vote. We're not going to take any action. The process is just going to move forward. But I appreciate you coming out and presenting this. I appreciate the public, you know, giving the input. Hopefully that's been helpful. And hopefully, you know, some of the issues that have been raised, to the extent that they haven't been thought about, that they can be addressed in your plans moving forward. Okay. Are there any other comments from the commissioners? Okay. I don't know if you're going to be around at the end of the evening, or if we can connect, and hopefully we can find a time where, you know, you could give members of the commission, you know, just a walkthrough, and we can see it on site. Okay. Thank you so much.
Can I make a comment real quick on that, Lane? I would say if you offered 2 or 3 different possibilities, you'd get a good consensus. Don't just tell us next Thursday's it. Not this time of year, please.
There you go. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is consideration of zoning ordinance amending Chapter 280 of the Radnor Code for nonconforming uses. The proposed ordinance has been before the commission twice before, has been amended and modified, and is on our agenda for consideration again. Do any of the commissioners have any comments on the ordinance as it's been revised? Excellent.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Do any members of the public wish to comment on the zoning ordinance amending Chapter 280? Okay, seeing none. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And what's the
A motion to recommend approval or recommend adoption by the Board of Commissioners as written.
That's my motion, yes.
Okay. Do I have a
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that unanimous? No.
Abstain.
We have, you're opposed? Okay, so we have 7. Okay, so
5 to 1.
is it 5 to 1 to 1?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 5 in favor, 1
6 to 1,
opposed,
sorry.
1 abstained.
Thank you.
The motion to recommend passes. Thank you. The only other item on the agenda is the Wayne Business Overlay Master Plan. There is a website where you can find out more about the project, which is www.avisionforwayne.com, and suggest that anyone interested go to that website to learn more about that project. Given that Labor Day holiday is September 7, 2026, the next meeting of the Planning Commission will be held on Tuesday, September 8, 2026. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, I'll
Motion
second
to
it.
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.